Internet, welcome to the Collective Arcada, a channel all about tabletop gaming. A couple things. First of all, we hit 1,000 subscribers.
We did! Thank you guys so much!
If you haven't subscribed yet, please do join the collective. We have been just so happy all day.
It's been a great day.
So there's been a somewhat viral video going around today, and we don't want to, we just want to contribute something positive on the subject for the 2E community. So we wanted to talk about some of the points that were in this video that we're not going to mention. We're not trying to put anybody on blast or anything like that. But you probably know what we're talking about. So, we're doing this kind of spontaneously. We hadn't planned on doing a video. We actually have a D&D game in like 2 hours, and I'm actually going to start painting a mini for the game that we have tonight. So I'll show a picture of it when it's done. But we do want to touch on some of these topics that were brought up in this video because we don't necessarily agree with them, and there's a lot of players on the fence about whether or not they want to play 2E, and we're just concerned people might get scared away from this system because of this like sort of viral video going around. So
viral within the community, at least.
Yeah, I mean, and it might be, I think it was just posted, like, today or yesterday or something.
It was, like, probably more now, but it was, a few hours ago today.
I've seen it in just about every platform. I've seen it on Facebook, I've seen it on
Reddit, yeah.
So, we just wanted to throw our 2 cents in, just to clear some stuff up.
Yes. So, first of all, the video, goes into quite a few things. The comments sections go into even more things, but suffice to say, I really want to talk about just a couple of primary points. The first one being a concept of illusion of choice. I disagree fundamentally with that assessment, even with the premise of that assessment. But in addition to that, I really want to talk about some feelings that seem to have been had regarding roleplay and how just how important roleplay is to Pathfinder 2nd Edition compared to some other popular games out there. And then was that it? Was there another big talking point that we wanted to cover?
Repetitive combat is something I would like to touch on.
Yes, which is part of that illusion of choice conversation, but definitely something that we want to
specifically go into.
Yeah.
And then, after this video, we have been talking about doing a sort of a video on addressing, issues players and GMs might have with 2E that you'd like us to, maybe like a Q&A type video. Like, is there something that you're not sure, like you don't maybe understand very well, or you have questions on? I've seen a lot of questions on random encounters, so we're going to do a video on that, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're going to do like a 10 things to clear up about 2E or something like that.
Yeah, especially covering, people who are going with preconceived notions or, expectations based on other games, and not because there's a lack of understanding of the game exactly, but more just assumptions going into the game or keeping you from going into the game at all based on those assumptions, and just some things that we really want to cover, and we'll, I'm sure, touch on several of them here, but we definitely want to do another video where we deep dive in all of the things that I see people a lot saying, oh, well, Pathfinder 2e doesn't do this well, or I can't do this in Pathfinder 2e, and for the most part, unless you're playing something hyper strict like Pathfinder Society that allows no wiggle room, it's just not the case. Some of my players have worked really hard to try to figure out the weirdest things you can play in Pathfinder 2e. And
it's actually half the fun for us.
Yeah, so. And there really hasn't been very many instances where we say, oh, you just can't do this.
This is impossible, yeah.
In fact, I would say not many at all. But anyway, with that said, for this video, let's go ahead and jump into this concept of the quote-unquote illusion of choice in Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
One more thing, we're almost done with the class series, so
close.
Thanks for sticking that out with us, but it's something we felt like the channel needed in the foundation. So we're going to be moving on to a lot, more topics. So please let us know anything you want us to cover this guy, he is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to, well, Pathfinder, but like just anything tabletop related, he will.
Tweaking, especially.
Yeah, so, we'll be doing a lot of homebrew stuff. Anyway, so let's get into it.
So there's this idea that, with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it looks like there's all these options, but then, in terms of this conversation, the illusion of choice shows up when you get into combat and you don't actually have options round to round. You feel forced and obligated into the same optimal activities over and over and over again within your class. And I will certainly say up front, I can understand seeing that. I can understand people having that impression based on a couple of things. One, the type of character you decided to build, and two, on the type of table that you happen to be playing at.
Also, I would like to pitch in, if you're having that problem, are you looking at your feats and what you have? Are you keeping those organized in some way? Because, I mean, the feats alone, outside of... So I'm a level 16 sorcerer.
A lot of options.
I never do the same thing. Like, I literally don't think ever since 2E came out...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there have been a few times where chain lightning has been like, well, obviously they do chain lightning.
I mean,
But that's not all I do. I have, like, focus spells to debuff and stuff like that. And it based on what I'm fighting, it changes. Mm-hmm. But aside from all that, I have items, I have feats, I have, like, all these things. So I can't wrap my head around that point. Because I feel like I have so many that I had to make a little, like... index card, like once a day I can do this, once a day I can do this, and plus I go buy items or find items to add on to what I can already do just as my base character. So if you feel that way, don't forget to look through your feats. And again, we say this every time, but Path Builder is the best app of all time ever, and you should get it if you have an Android. Because it really helps to keep all that stuff straight. But so go ahead.
I just want to jump off from there. You have a sorcerer, and you could have potentially built a sorcerer where, you were just blasting every round all the time. So it's possible, but that's not what you wanted to play, so that's not what you built, and that's not what you do. So...
Sometimes I turn into a dragon. Sometimes I'm ranged. I also have an option to shocky stab. I can deliver a shocky spell through my weapon. Like I have all these.
With that is a homebrew. The delivering through a weapon, but there are items that have a similar effect.
Yeah.
So,
well, I used to be a Magus.
Yeah, part of the conversion to 1E. And the thing is, that's going to be a thing in the next book. The next.
Oh yeah.
Secrets of Magic is going to add the Magus back in. So
we did a video on that.
But depending on your build, you could have been. We already have tools for an arcane archer to do the same thing. Eldritch archer they call it because they didn't want to box it into one magical tradition. The point is that based on numerous build choices, she has created a character that is full of options. Now to go over to one that was specifically called out in this video that we're reacting to, for lack of a better term. No, we are. We're totally reacting to.
Yeah, we're reacting to.
One of the classes that was called out was the Swashbuckler. And I have seen exactly, what was mentioned, where the optimal turn is going to involve tumble through, to get panache, and then, some sort of...
Also, the optimal is not always the right choice. It's also a story. Do the fun shit, like...
That's definitely a component of it, yes. I mean, just to go off on that tangent, because it's an important tangent, just because the mathematically best move is clear to you doesn't necessarily mean that it's A, going to be clear to your character, or B, something that your character is comfortable doing or willing to do. Sometimes your character
Your chaotic character is probably not going to do the same thing every turn.
Right. I mean, your character may look at, a situation and say, well, I know that optimally we need to focus fire and bring down this enemy, but my character just saw, his or her best friend go down, and I'm going to get over there, even though I may not have the best tools to get that
This happened
character.
in our game.
Just because I may not have the best tools to get that character up and running again compared to somebody else who may be further on the initiative, my character would not just let that character lay there and bleed out, even if I know mechanically we have other solutions. And part of that video's response was, well, then you are choosing to play suboptimally, and you are in some way hurting the game. This is a massive just fallacy, insane argument to make. In the first place, your GM is your friend. I'm not saying at every table you're going to have that experience, but hopefully if you're the type of player...
I hope so.
Hopefully, and if you're the type of player that's going to make that, in-character role-play decision in combat, hopefully you have developed that habit by being at a table where that is, nurtured and accounted for. And I think that this particular point is very important to make because it is core, I think, to this person who made this other video's experiences and why they are having these issues. That person specifically calls out Pathfinder2e consistently as a crunchy, mechanics-first game, and I could not disagree more. I will say that if you think that Pathfinder2e is a particularly crunchy game, you haven't played a lot of games.
Now, 1E was kind of crunchy.
Yes, 1E was
We'll give you
definitely
that.
crunchy. And that's not...
Still shouldn't really affect your... Anyway,
Now, 2E is a granular game, and I think that's an important distinction because crunchy implies that you are doing a lot of math, you're crunching numbers. That's not what you're doing here. But that doesn't mean there's not something, granular to hold on to. There is a texture to the game. There are a lot of mechanics. What makes that difference to me for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and of course your mileage may vary, it's that Pathfinder uses significantly unified systems. What that means is that whether you're making a saving throw, a skill check, an attack roll, whatever it is, any roll that you're making, you are going to be dealing with their proficiency system and their plus 10, minus 10 critical and success tables on everything. There are no times you're going to touch a d20. You're going to make a check that does not qualify there. In point of fact, it's one of the things that a lot of people mess up with when they're new to the game and they're looking at the frightened condition. And they think, well, frightened doesn't look that good. It's just a penalty to checks. AC and attack rolls and things like that are considered checks in Pathfinder 2e. And once you learn that, you see the value of that frightened condition shoot up. It's just a thing where, and I'm not saying the person who said that didn't have that level of system mastery. I'm just saying that there is a granularity to it that is unified, so it's not actually that complicated. There are only a couple of concepts you need to grasp to play Pathfinder 2e effectively, and that is 3-action economy, the proficiency system, which is for everything, and the plus and minus 10, the degrees of success. If you can do that, that's it. That's the extent of the crunchiness of Pathfinder.
if you can't, you should watch some of our videos.
Yeah, please do. Or, ask a question. We'll be happy to help. But those are the core concepts of the game, and they apply in every single situation where you are using mechanics. Beyond that, the only real variation you're going to have are things that are electives, things that you chose. That's the only real complication there is the build that you chose. And what's great is that build can be as simple or complex as you want. If your comfort level is to play a frontline martial character that swings a weapon really well,
Who does the same thing by choice every round.
not only can you do that, you can do that very well. It's a very viable option. I've said before that the only way you can build a bad character in Pathfinder 2e is by purposely making sure that your primary ability score, whether that's strength or dexterity for a fighter, intelligence for wisdom, so on, etc., as long as you are keeping that high on level, you will be effective, you will be good, and you will be contributing to your team. That's full stop. That's it. That's the difficulty in building a good character. Now, everything else is just adding options. It really is. And the more options you have, of course, the better you're going to do. and the more options you're going to have turn to turn. If you prefer feats that are giving you fewer options because you want less to keep track of, and you want to have that same round to round, that's your comfort level, that's what you're looking for, you just want to, as the video said, to have a few drinks and kill some monsters with some friends, great, you can do that, that's there for you. If you want a roleplay heavy game, if you want a game where your character has numerous options and feels distinct from the character across from him, even if that character is the same ancestry, the same class, even the same subclass, I mean, we can get into that. You can do that, and you can have a great character.
Oh, I was just going to say, since one of the complaints was that it wasn't RP heavy, right? While he's on the subject, like, have you seen the feats in this game? Like, most of them are, like, RP based.
Yeah.
Or at least, like, they're very flavorful. Mm-hmm. So that was a confusing...
That's a very strange complaint.
Yeah, that's the reason we like this system, is because there's so much flavor. Like, there's so... It RPs itself. Like, you have to RP because you're like, you accidentally build this, like, rich character, and then you get abilities that encourage you to RP. Like,
that is the key right there.
If you're not using those feats, then yeah, you're probably not RPing, because, like, I wish I could think of some examples. I know for me specifically, like, I couldn't resist taking all these deception feats, and I never meant to be a deceptive character, but here we are, because it's too fun not to. And that, and a lot of it plays into combat as well, because you can, like, you'll get these abilities that you can't just... I mean, I guess you can just take these abilities, but, like, you don't have a story as to why all of a sudden you have this weird spell when you shouldn't have spells at all. Like, I don't get that one.
Right.
I think that's the one that's bothering me. That and the repetitive. Those two things are the points that are...
I mean, that RP... there was a point in the video where he said, you should play Pathfinder2e if you want to say to your GM, yes, I would like to use this ability and talk to this... shopkeeper for 1 minute and then roll this check and have this effect. I'm not saying you can't play that way.
That's not how our game is going.
No. For some people, that may be what the level of RP that you're comfortable with is third person, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Totally fine if that's what you choose.
I've
to
had
complain that you're forced to do that does not make sense.
Or to say that the system in any way seems to prefer or cater to that playstyle is... The reason that we're doing the video, it's misinformative. It's giving false information, we feel. I earnestly feel that it is giving a false impression of what Pathfinder 2
And with
does.
so many people on the fence about this system, like, we had to talk about this.
Yes.
Because it's not fair to scare people off of this really awesome game. Like, and a lot of the complaints, like, they just apply to, if they were true, would apply to all systems.
Yes, they are not
so
unique to Pathfinder.
why target 2E that we love so much?
So let's talk about that idea of role play, right? So a lot of people have this feeling, and I think it's where this person's concept came from, of you have to play very mechanics focused because there are all these mechanics, and that's true. Right? But I think that there's a flip side to that. And
wait, so was the argument that there was too many mechanics to RP with, or not enough?
Exactly.
Just curious.
In general, the argument is that
Sorry.
In general, the argument...
Nice.
The argument that he had was that, by having all those rules, they get in the way of roleplay. And
they're not really rules.
Well, I mean, like, for example, by saying that, you have a feat that allows you to talk to this person for 1 minute and then roll this check and then affect their disposition, that's therefore saying that you have to have this feat to affect this person's disposition. That is not the case, and that is, in my opinion, and everyone's game is differently, everyone's GM is going to be different, that is bad use of rules.
Yeah.
The point of that feat is to say, yes, you can absolutely do it, but it's not to say that there's no way to influence this NPC. It's just to say you have a guaranteed way to influence this NPC, and these are the codified rules on how you can guarantee to do it. And the reason that that's important and fun is because it allows you as a player to say, hey GM, I understand this situation is one where maybe we can't always get these. I have this feat. Can it apply? It's an additional tool that you have, just like you might have a tool in combat that says, think of it this way, right? In combat, you might have an ability that when the GM's monster goes to do something, you say, aha, I have this thing. Can this apply? That doesn't mean that that's the only way you can affect this combat. It just means in this particular instance, you have a thing that you can point to and say, my character's good at this. Can I do it? All Pathfinder's doing is creating that outside of combat. They are giving you those tools and hoping that you will play with them outside of combat.
Also, if you can do them, that doesn't mean don't RP it.
Right.
Like,
you should absolutely RP
Game it up, make a moment out of it. Like,
right.
That's more reason to RP. Like, just because you know it'll work doesn't mean you should skip the scene if it's a fun scene.
Absolutely. A fighter might know that their attack's going to kill a goblin. Doesn't mean
they'll be like, so for an example, for a while I had, because of homebrew stuff, I had a focus spell that was like bludgeoning, what was it called? It was called elemental
toss.
Yeah. He, let me flavor it to my character who's a pirate who loves glitter, so it's glitter and seashells. And, I didn't say, hey, just with any attack, I'm not like, hey, can I use this spell against this enemy? Okay, I do it. Mm-hmm. No, I'm like, I muster up glitter and seashells and I throw it at his face. Like, just because you can do it doesn't mean it's like, I don't get that.
Right, and that's
different than any other game right
Exactly,
now.
That's tabletop RPG in general. If you're at a table and people's comfort level for RP is I move up my movement speed and I roll an attack against the goblin, A, that's completely fine and a fine way to play. B, that does not preclude the next person beside you to say, well, seeing my friend, so-and-so do this, I'm inspired, I charge forward with all my might, I make a swing. The exact same thing just happened. One was just described mechanically, one was described not mechanically.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But at no point in the rules was either one encouraged or discouraged.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the big takeaway and the big hiccup that we're having there. To go back to that concept of having these articulated rules somehow leading to less roleplay or discouraging roleplay if you don't have these articulated abilities. My counter, and I've mentioned it several times, we talked about it on other videos, is that especially for a new player or for somebody who's got a new character and they're having trouble, role-playing that character, being able to go through a list like you would in combat and say, what does my character do? Mm-hmm. Being out of combat and being able to look at a list and saying, oh, this is what my character does, is empowering. It's the opposite of taking options away. It's encouraging roleplay by saying, yes, not only do you shoot lightning bolts out of your hand, but also you're really good at lying. And when you lie, not only can people not tell that you're lying, but other people who try to find out that information that you lied about are going to hear that lie going forward, and here's a mechanic that says so. That is really, really fun and interesting, and it makes for great role-play moments.
But it's also optional. And if you don't want to take those feats, there are plenty of boring feats that will just help you, fight better or whatever. You don't have to take the RP ones.
You can just be better at sneaking if that's what you
I'm
want
not
to do.
sure if the complaint is that it's not RP enough or it's too, it's hard for me to, but either you can do whichever one you want. That's the point.
Right. And again, not only can you do whichever one, but neither one is right or wrong, and neither one is encouraged or discouraged in the mechanics of the system. So now let's talk about, let's pop back over to that concept of round to round, you have to do the same things. Again, you could have built a character that is good at exactly one thing, especially, you look at a class like a barbarian or a monk, your round might every round be, I move in close, I do my melee attacks, whatever that looks like, whatever my best version of my melee attack looks like, and then it's somebody else's turn. If that's what you want, great. If it's exciting to you to be really good at one thing, great. And then you actually can have that metagame. I don't mean that like, we're metagaming, breaking the game. I just mean like a sort of game within a game where it's your goal to try to figure out how can I get up there and do my thing that I want to do, right? How do I impose my will? I've built my character to do this. How do I make sure I get to do this as much as possible? For some people, that's fun. I've had characters that I played that were very much like that. Like, I do this. Not so much in Pathfinder2e. It's a lot harder because you can't just stack up and be really good at specifically one thing and only one thing and the best at that one thing, which I think could be a lot of reason why some people are having issues.
Really?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, especially coming from 3.0...
I would get bored doing that.
I mean, I agree with that. I'd never go back now. But, so... And what we're talking about is the fact that in Pathfinder2e, rather than having options to continually improve one thing, which there are some, but most of the time, your one thing is going to have only a few of your feats and not at every level have them available. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have several levels where you will have to take something besides that. In addition, you're going to have those skill feats that we talked about that can be very flavorful and create a wide range, both out of combat and in combat. I mean, having intimidation, having stealth, those are two things that can really affect both in and out of combat and give you really solid options to do besides I move and attack.
And they're based on the choices that you're making every time you level up. They unlock as you decide what points things are going in and things like that. So you have total control here. Like what you're trying to pull off.
Right. And that's what was talked about, this illusion of choice, that your only choice is in your build, but then round to round you've got optimal round to round things that you should be doing because that's where your feats are. But you can't take a class feat to make your attack have a better chance to hit.
Yeah.
So I don't see that. You can certainly take attack or take class feats that are going to make certain things more appetizing, but they're not going to work on every creature. If you've got a bunch of feats for tripping, you've got the weapon, you've got feats to do it, and then you're up against a creature that is extra hard to trip, or whatever the case may be, is just you're going to find monsters that you can't do that to, and that's why you should. To make an effective character, you should branch out and not assume that every combat you're going to be able to trip. And your GM should be running games where you are not able to just trip. The GM should not be running games where you never get to trip. You've invested in that. That should be part of the fun, is seeing how good that can be. But it's also not fun if every single round, this character likes to trip, they are set up, they can go trip this thing, and that's the end of their turn. That can be very boring. Yeah. That's the GM's responsibility to build diverse and exciting encounters.
That's what I was about to say. Are you using the same monster every fight?
Yes. Oh my goodness gracious.
Is that what's going on?
So, there are monsters in these books, and you can't really see them here, but there are monsters in these bestiaries that almost every Pathfinder 2nd edition monster has some wild, unique ability that is either something that PCs wouldn't get access to until much later, so it's totally surprising there, or it's something that PCs just don't get access to at all, or it's a similar thing with just enough of a tweak to throw people off. There are tools that these monsters have that should be disrupting everybody's game plan if you want it to. I'm not saying every single monster and every single fight should just be pure chaos, but if you feel that your players are doing too well and getting to do exactly what they want, and they're getting bored with how simple and straightforward combat is,
there's always one person's I don't know what to do.
Right. Anything from just having abilities that separate the party, or prevent meleeers from getting into melee with them, and a lot of monsters have a lot of tools just within those categories, should be disrupting what your players do.
Create some stress. It's okay. Maybe this person is trying to pick only monsters that perfectly fit the party's abilities or something.
Maybe. And, I understand that
not everybody gets to shine every fight, and it's way more rewarding when it's your turn to shine. And it's also just the more threat there is to lose, the more exciting it is, and then also rewarding when you win, if you win.
Well, and that's one of the things that in the video was brought up, was that there is more lethality, and I think that there's definitely a possibility that if you're playing a game and you have a TPK at level 9, like the video said, that's going to create a lot of issues, because it might cause your players to have reactionary builds where they go in and say, okay, my previous character was grew organically over 9 levels, did unique things, and then they died, and I don't want my next character to die, so I'm going to really hone in and focus in on one concept and be really good at it to not die again. So there's that possibility. There's also the possibility of, of why you would continue to do the same thing over and over, of, well, now I've got a druid, and I've been playing them for 3 levels, not 9 levels, and gradually growing in power. I've started with all these options. I'm probably forgetting things that I can do. I either reactionarily built a one-dimensional character because I didn't build it organically and I didn't think about it. I just said, oh, I want a character to do this, and then I did this, and I made sure I was best at this. Or, you have built a well-rounded character, but you are forgetting those options. I think that in those anecdotal stories, I think that was a big factor in those experiences. Was that all that went into it? No, certainly not. Again, every table...
Was it one fight that actually happened that he's, basing this entire thing on?
No, I don't think so. That was just some of the anecdotes that he used. But there was definitely...
Also, if you're TPKing all the time, maybe you should reread the DM or the GM
yes,
advice.
So that's one of the things. So he's running a pre-published adventure.
Okay.
Age of Ashes specifically. And Age of Ashes is typically known to be a very difficult.
So you know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, that there are set fights within that adventure path, like any adventure path. They're pre-built, they're pre-designed, and hey, I understand. Maybe those fights get repetitive because you don't have access to every monster you'd like, so you don't have as much variation in those monster abilities.
Don't you have access on mine, though?
Well, yes. Well, the idea is, again, within that caveat of I'm playing exactly what's in the published adventure.
Okay.
Right? So I would say that I can't imagine that's the case, that every single fight, no monsters in that book have unique abilities. I've seen some of the monsters that are specific to that adventure path. While I haven't run it, I have seen and used and salivated over how fun some of those monsters are. So I know that there's unique options that could have appeared with abilities that I would think would do a pretty good job of disrupting a table's game plan. But beyond that, if you feel like an adventure path is too cookie cutter, you're not playing Pathfinder Society, feel free to swap something out. Like you said, feel free. Just because you're running that adventure path, and this is true, whatever system you're playing.
So we were talking about this before the camera. We've been talking about this all day. Before the camera was on, one of the best things about Pathfinder is how easy it is to homebrew a little bit. Yes. You don't have to. You're in complete charge. Nobody's over your shoulder being you better follow the rules or else. You get if you feel like something is too hard or whatever, you can change it. Just change it. It's okay. You're the god of this game.
That's what's great about tabletop RPGs is unless you're in something structured like Society or Adventurers League over in D&D or something, you can change it. If, for example, you have seen your party struggling in Age of Ashes, the books will generally tell you if you are playing with one less or one more or whatever players, adjust it accordingly. If you see that your players are just having too much trouble, sometimes use the encounter rules for one less player than you actually have.
Or drop some stuff. We were struggling because we lost our healer. So he dropped some really overpowered things.
Yeah, but
to help. And guess what? It was super fun. Did not take away from the game. And then when we got a healer, he took it from us.
It allowed us to keep up the pace of, the types of encounters and rate of encounters that we were enjoying. And and that's always your option. You can, if you know that the healer isn't going to be there, which, that's another fun thing is in our builds, because we were building over for Pathfinder 1, there is more reliance on having a healer than other games. But the party just recently all realized, after doing an APG rebuild, oh man, we sure do have a lot of medicine checks on this team and several feats to boost up those.
We all took it.
And
we all took the combat. What's it called?
Battle medicine.
Battle medicine.
Yeah, and that's.
I don't even think we communicated to one another. We're like, oh, I took that too. Yeah, we
No, it's a good thing.
Don't lose your paladin into the abyss like we did. That was traumatizing. Not like we almost died traumatizing, but we were used to the healing cushion.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great point, right? Is just as an example, this medicine concept. Mm-hmm. Okay? So in Pathfinder2e, you can build a barbarian that is just run up, smash, end of my turn, right? Smash as many times and as hard as I can, move when I need to. That's how I play my character. And you know what? Good for you. That's fun. There's nothing wrong with that. If you feel that you're getting bored, Pathfinder2e has clear rules on how you can retrain pretty much anything about your character. The only things that get tricky are subclasses and things like that. And your ancestry can't be totally changed, but the feats you took within your ancestry, pretty much anything with downtime can be changed. There are rules for it. Outside of those rules, if you're at a casual table and you say to your GM, hey, these things are not working out like I thought, or hey, I'm seeing the party really struggle with these things, and I think it'd be fun if my character did those things, your GM is probably going to say, yeah, sure, let's think about how that might affect your character, and let's think about that, and let's, go ahead and swap a few things around so you can get to that, whatever. The point is, whether it's your GM being cool or you have the actual downtime and you can just, by the rules, retrain. And that's what's great about that thing is because, again, you don't have to rely on GM fiat. You don't have to rely on getting the GM's approval. If you have downtime in the rules in Pathfinder2e, you have an option to retrain. It has costs. It has time breakdowns. They're there if you need them. If you have a GM that is, wants to be like by the rules, you have the rules. And then if you have a GM that is a little more loose like I am and says, yeah, this option wasn't available, when until the APG came out, rebuild your character with whatever you want from the APG. Keep the same themes, keep the same core concept to your character for continuity reasons, but anything else.
Honestly, if you're getting bored, then have the whole party. That's what we did. It was
APG was a fun couple of weeks while we
we're still our same characters, but we all sat down and we made some kind of dramatic changes. Mm-hmm.
But nobody feels like different characters. No. It didn't affect the story at all. In fact, one player, because of some story events, drove how he rebuilt his character to reflect those story events.
Which, by the way, weakened him by choice. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, but you're not doing the optimal thing every round. How can you play Pathfinder2e if you're not doing the optimal thing every round?
He was drunk with power.
He was. He's learned his lesson.
Yeah, and he gave up some powerful stuff because his character is supposed to... his character RP'd and was like, my character would be really freaked out by how much power and how he's acting. Because the player was like, get a little power hungry too.
This event
it worked out beautifully.
Yeah, it was great. And the timing, just because that's when the APG came out and that's when we did our rebuilds. But, so here's the thing, is that if you're at a table where your GM is encouraging you and the type of table where roleplay is happening, your GM is not going to punish you for making a roleplay decision by not doing the most mechanically optimal. If your GM is only throwing you into the kind of fights where you have to do exactly the right thing every round, you're dead. That's what's going to happen. Pathfinder2e is a brutal and unforgiving system when it wants to be, and if your GM wants to run that kind of game or just doesn't know or doesn't feel empowered to make the changes to prevent it from being a murder machine game, it's going to be a murder machine game. It's really good at killing people. It's really good at total party kills. It can do that.
If you want it to be.
If you want it to be. And listen, there is fun to be had in that type of game, but that type of game is not for everyone, and that type of game is not the only way to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition. As with everything in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's there if you want it. It is not required. That's why the book will tell you how severe of a fight something is, allowing you as the GM to adjust it. If in your session 0, people say, "Hey, I get really attached to my character, and I use D&D, Pathfinder, whatever this tabletop game is, I use this as an escape from stress and
the real
world, and I don't want to have to worry about my character dying and going through that emotionally." what can we do? You, as a GM, can say, okay, well, I will just reduce the threat level of these monsters by just a stage or two. I will...
We talked about this in a video. I'm trying to remember what video it was, but we went over this. Like, it's super important that you communicate, make sure you're at the right table.
Yes.
You should all be on the same page. Your expectations should be pretty clear. Like, if you're going in looking for a meat grinder game as a DM or a GM or a player, that should probably be communicated.
Absolutely. And it probably won't work for one person to be like, yeah, meat grinder me, and another person to be like, kid gloves, please. I'm not trying to... And that's why we say it a lot, like, this hobby is for everyone, but every table is not necessarily for everyone. Like, your first table might not be your first table. It is a good thing. But going back to that, like, you, as a GM, have the tools to adjust the game. If it's too lethal, or if you see your players and they're getting bored because they feel they can only do the right thing, there is a lack of trust there. Yeah. There is a lack of the players understanding that they don't have to make min-max builds. And if you're coming from Pathfinder2e, you're probably in that mindset of, I've got to have this min-max build. That's one of the fun things that I loved about that game, but it is not a requirement for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And, it's something that is a relic that people are bringing in. And within Pathfinder2e, you have the option to make interesting characters that are quote-unquote subpar, because, again, as long as you have your key ability score as maxed as your level will allow, you will be effective. No matter what other choices you've made on your character, you may not be the strongest person in the party, but you will be able to contribute, thank you, to contribute in combat and out of combat. And it's up to you how much you want to do that, and it's up to the table how much people feel comfortable doing that. And that's, again, true any game, any table.
System, yeah.
Any system, yeah. If your players feel like you are encouraging them to only bring the strongest thing, then that's the case. And playing through an APG, or not an APG, but an AP, a pre-made adventure, is not an excuse as a GM. You need to be able to look at that and say, this is not the kind of game my players want. Before you run one, do some research if you can, if you're playing it right when it comes out.
We do have a 2E GM tips video.
Yeah, probably more coming on the way, yeah. And more coming, be right here. And more on the way, of course, once we get through these class videos. But the core is that you have to understand as a GM that you are in control. If you're seeing things at your table, A, talk to your players if it's something that needs it. If B, it's something that you're seeing they're bored with the types of actions, switch out those monsters in that adventure path. If they're tired of fighting troglodytes, then don't have them fight troglodytes, just for an example.
Also, feel free to drop a Rod of Wonder. That'll mix things up.
Yeah, it sure will. Yeah,
if your players are bored and they feel like they're doing the same thing, like, we have also a video on how to homebrew weird, like, super weird items. Like, we have a gun that shoots cheeseburgers.
It does.
And the cheeseburgers hold up to, like, 3rd level spells. Guess who has that? The Barbarian. I load it up as a sorcerer before, and then I give it to her, and then she shoots people with cheeseburgers. That's not very boring.
No, it's ridiculous and silly, and that's
and
what's great about the
we
game.
give it funny names, so we have Paralyzed in there right now, so it's Cheeseburger of Paralyzed.
yeah.
We're hilarious. You can be too. Just like, I just don't see how you could possibly be bored in this game.
Yeah, there is...
And the Rod of Wonders is not homebrewed.
No, Rod of Wonders is an 8th level magic item. It's very silly and strange.
If I was a GM and a player said they were bored, I would make the bad guy have one of those. And be like,
for sure.
Okay.
I would give one to every bad guy.
Give one to everybody. The bad guys and the good guys. Everybody gets one.
Have a special fight. All you can do is the Rod of Wonder. That's all anyone can do.
See, look, I'm a great GM already.
This would be a super fun one-shot, I think.
Just a chest full of Rods of Wonder.
And then, beyond that, you've got terrain you can play with, different types of environments. Again, what's in the adventure path may say, XYZ. Oh, look, it looks great. Nice 3D printed snowman for just this occasion. We're doing a Christmas-themed Party doesn't know, but
I do.
Yeah, you do. That's the downfall of, But so, you've got the option. Just because it says it's a boring one-room cave with 4 kobolds in it doesn't mean it has to be a boring one-room cave with 4
Also,
kobolds in it.
RP the kobolds to be super silly or
Or
give them personality.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look at, 5e and its kobold inventor, that throws skunks at people, and you can get silly with this, and it's there. When homebrewing, just remember a couple of things with Pathfinder2e. Don't mess with the pluses and minuses, and that's it. That's really it. Don't mess with the number of creatures. Try to figure out roughly what level is this creature, and then compare it to the encounter building, and you're probably going to be okay. And if you don't feel comfortable making entirely homebrew monsters, just tweak a couple of things. Just add an ability, remove an ability, tweak
make
something.
Make it look different and
make it look different so they
pick
don't
a
know
completely
what
different monster, and they'll be like, "What?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is an ogre really, or is a troll really that different from an ogre? And you can't RP a reason why that ogre might regen. Whatever, you can do it. You can do it.
What are some of the other complaints that they had?
Well, I do want to go back to, real quick, round to round, right? We're talking about the barbarian, just as an example, can just be run up, rage, smash, that's your character. I've talked about this before. My awesome spirit totem orc barbarian. The mechanically best choice, we're in a low magic campaign. I knew we wouldn't see many undead. I still rolled a spirit totem, or not totem, but spirit instinct barbarian, because that's fun to me. The idea of being possessed by ghosts is how you rage, and later abilities being able to manipulate those ghosts in other ways, super fun. And I developed this shaman character. I knew that in a low magic campaign we weren't going to have a cleric, so I said, you know what, I'm going to be the party healer. I took medicine. I knew that we were going to start without a lot of items, or not in civilization, so I took natural medicine so that I could just rub dirt in it to heal people. I've got battle medicine, I've got ward medic now. I can keep the party going HP wise, and I'm the barbarian. So my round is not always smashing. I recently got some nice.
It could be, but
it could be. But we just recently had one where I could have gone over and helped an ally possibly down a threat, but a valued NPC went down, and my character would not, even through the rage, would not go over and just kill the next thing it could. I saw someone was hurt, someone was on the verge of death, and the type of character I was playing, he said, not today. He went over, he did the suboptimal thing, rescued the NPC, and we had to end up ditching that fight and running because the tide turned so much by me doing that, but it's way more interesting than if we just won that fight. It led to a lot more interesting things down the line, in terms of how the adventure progressed, and it made more sense within the characters, and it bonded us because one person had a relationship with that NPC that I didn't, but by saving them, I've now ingratiated. It's
the story is not just the adventure path.
Right.
The story is about the characters. The story path is just the setting. You're not trying to retell the same written story over and over.
Right. I mean, there's an element of buy-in. Yes, we're all going to, be saying yes and when the GM has an NPC tell us what we're doing next. But how we do those things and how our characters value things within that can vary. As long as we're all saying yes, of course, we do know that we've got to continue this path.
I mean, if you don't want to do that, play a video game, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it exactly the same, then there are a lot of great video
RP options. Video games are for you. I mean,
or
not
Pathfinder
video
Society.
games are for everybody,
Right.
but
or Pathfinder Society, or one of those strict organized play. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way you like to play.
I feel like even there,
Great.
you probably have a personality though.
Yeah, but if you find that your character, or that you feel like you can't make role play decisions.
Sorry, I keep going back to that one. That's the point that's really confusing.
It is, and I think that people come from before Pathfinder2e. If you're comparing it to Pathfinder 1, it had a really bad reputation, called Mathfinder and things like that, of being this game that you had to want to crunch numbers, you had to want to min-max. If you didn't min-max, then you were a liability to the party. All of these conceptions, and I can't say that they were wrong, At least not all the time.
But we're talking about 2nd edition.
And it is very much not that game. It is very much a game that encourages roleplay. Going back to those skill feats, right? Mm-hmm. As a new player, you may not know how to make a fully fleshed out, well-rounded character. You know, you may take a character that in other editions, I'm a rogue. That's all of my character. But in Pathfinder2e, okay, you're a rogue, but not only do you have to get skill feats, you have to get them every single level. And then, so you've got to go and you've got to say, okay, well, I could just continue to level up my sneak and take a bunch of sneaking feats, climbing feats, utility feats like that. But you go start reading through those lists of skill feats and you see things like, sow rumor, glad hand, and you start to get these concepts of your character that you may not have had before if you were just, sitting there and thinking about, I'm a rogue, what does a rogue do? By going through those feat lists, you get these ideas and these character hooks. And I mean, I saw battle medicine. I said, oh, I can be the healer. My barbarian's going to be the healer. And it went from being, I was going to play the quintessential barbarian, and I said, oh, no, I'm going to be, weirdo shaman barbarian.
And that directly plays into the round for round combat, because unless you're actively avoiding these feat choices that you've made, I don't see how you don't have options because of just from that. Mm-hmm. Just that,
mm-hmm. Well, especially in Pathfinder2e, the numbers can be really tight. You can be fighting a monster, and individually you have almost no chance to harm this creature. They can be that strong. And then what you have to do is use teamwork, and you have to together use what are typically going to be those skills, those skill feats, to get situational benefits, penalties, apply, conditions to enemies. Whatever you need to do, you have to work together and use all of these tools to make that monster that you normally might have to roll an 18 just to hit, make it so that now, at least some of you can now hit that on a much more reasonable number. And otherwise, that thing is going to kill you. You're going to lose. You are going to die if you don't work together and use all of those tools.
I am, pretty powerful blasty caster, but lately, since we shifted around stuff after the APG, I have a focus spell that severely cripples any bad guy, because I think I even get to choose, what I'm making them, fail at and all that stuff. So I choose to spend my turn, crippling that jerk instead of blasting him, but you know what? I shoot a bow or something, and sometimes that crits, and then I'm doing crazy damage anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I never thought that I'd be using a bow ever, but it's become one of my favorite combos to do this focus spell, and it's a 5th level focus spell, so it's really good, and so far it's landed every time.
Well,
why did I say that? We have a game today.
Well, because the nature of that particular focus spell is even if they succeed, the effect is still there for one round, and one round of, you've got 3 frontline people, that's going to melt something. That's going to be real bad for it. And then, you put that debuff on it, so now you feel more comfortable using your bow that is not normally something that you're really good with.
Yeah.
But, it's got all these penalties, and you've hit and crit with that bow twice, I think, now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just...
And you can, intimidate, right? Mm-hmm. That's something else that if you chosen these skill things, your intimidation, ability can level up with you if you choose so.
And it can kill people. You can roll an intimidation check and somebody dies.
In the game, there's just so many. I don't know how you would... If you're just doing one thing every round, you just are not looking at your options, period. No matter what class you are. Our barbarian, we just talked about all this, healing and stuff yours does. Ours is, she's turns into a demon, she can fly.
She's a reskinned dragon instinct barbarian. Instead of turning into a dragon, she's turning into a demon because of roleplay reasons.
And she has, a trident for ranged attacks. She has she's got all these, little things she can do. She's
got a glove that she can shoot frost javelins. It's a nice little homebrew item. I noticed that, and this was from, I think I gave it to her in 1E. I noticed that she was having trouble getting around the battlefield. It was before she gained the ability to fly from her rage. And so I gave her a mobility tool, and she, sometimes forgot to use it, especially after the switch to 2E. You have options.
You have to choose to be doing the same thing. Anyways, I don't want to keep dwelling on that same point.
So I think we can close it up. I think we've said our piece. I want to say that I think that the situation that led to that video, especially the one that he references, specifically the adventure path, the party wipe, and then a person who was playing a druid and only 3 levels into playing a high level druid felt bored. I think that probably all of those problems could have been solved by just a perspective shift and more getting behind what Pathfinder2e does.
Lean into your choices that you already made. Make the most out of them. Like, you can take feats and not use them.
For sure. So, I mean, you take that situation, right? The things that happen there, one, the GM, it's a tough adventure path. If he didn't want a party wipe to be on the table, could have adjusted something going in.
Or maybe chosen a different one. Knowing its reputation.
Right. I mean, do research. Sometimes if you're getting them right when they can't come out, it's a little hard to. But read ahead. Know how tough that fight's going to look. And if you have a party that you don't want them to wipe, you've never wiped and you've never had a TPK in your entire tabletop RPG experience, you don't want to start, adjust that. B, if your players are having to use their abilities more often, if you're giving them more interesting encounters, they're going to learn what those abilities are, and then you can have them cut their teeth on easier encounters that don't let them do what they want, so they've got to branch out and try their other abilities, or they realize on level up, oh, I either need to take this feat now, or I need to take downtime and retrain this other feat, and then hopefully build some well-rounded characters. And then and then you go forward and you say, okay, well, now we've all got the hang of it, and now we can have these more interesting combats because we've all learned the system, and then it's okay that the lethality of the system is a little higher because we all have system mastery. If your group never wants to, doesn't aspire to that level of system mastery, then just continue to adjust the encounters to be a little weaker than normal. If your team loves it or is some mixture, then adjust that way. You have those tools and you have those options.
It's also your job as the GM.
It's your job as the GM.
And that's a comment I will say. I really don't want to be negative in any way, but that is the comment I saw most. Is that this sounds like a GM problem. So don't be afraid to look in the mirror. I would tell what happened.
Sorry, we ranted too long and it cut off.
Our memory card got full of ranting.
So what I wanted to say, and I'm not sure how much of it got cut off, is if you feel like you're doing everything right, you're adjusting the game as needed, you're encouraging your players to use different abilities as much as possible, you may just want to pick up the Game Mastery Guide right here and use the free archetypes. It's an option built into Path Builder. If you pay the $2 or $3 and get the full version of Path Builder, you can use those alternative rules. So it's right there, easy to keep track of, easy to build, or you can just go on the archives of Nethys and they've got the rules right there. It's a wonderful alternative system that forces the players, every time they gain a class level, they also get a free archetype feat in addition to their class feat every single time going forward. It's something that sounded crazy to me when we first saw it, and I said, well, that's too strong. It's not. You don't even need to adjust what they're fighting. It's not going to make them stronger. It's going to give them new tools, new varied options. It's going to give them give each character fewer situations where they have no recourse, no course of action. But it's not actually going to increase any numbers that are super important to power level. It's just going to give them new tools, not make them stronger. So you don't need to adjust your encounters at all. I think it's worth doing. My current game does not have it. My next game and all my games going forward absolutely will play with the free archetype. It's my opinion that it's the only way to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, just because I like characters that have a lot of options and can do a lot of things. Are you excited about the free archetypes, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the more helps me build my character and figure out who they are, you know, especially as a newer player. I don't know how long I can say that. I've now played nearly every class in one shot.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Melithica Death Rattle. It was a one shot. It wasn't about, the setting. But our players were so ridiculous, myself included, that we had one guy acting like a wrestler who fell in love with his arch nemesis. And anyway, it does not have to be boring.
No, and
we don't. No, I don't want to circle back. Sorry.
The point is just
we can admit this is an emotionally charged reaction video.
For sure.
It's just because we love it so much. It's, and here's the thing. You don't have to play 2E if you really don't like it.
No.
But maybe don't put stuff on blast if it's not for you, because it's actually a really great system, and it just sucks to see it being sort of trolled for no reason.
Well, and that's the thing for me. It's not that you have criticisms of the system. That's totally fine. It's when you have misinformed criticisms of the system that I earnestly believe... With a catchy title. That I earnestly believe good understanding of the game is going to eliminate all those issues. Like you said, many of them are things that are just paramount in RPGs in general. If your players don't RP, you're not going to have an RP-heavy table. You're going to have people saying, I would like to go up to the shopkeep and try to convince him to lower his prices, regardless of what system you're playing. If that's that person's comfort level, if that's the feel at the table, that's what's going to happen. That's not the system's fault. That is the table's not even necessarily fault again, but that is the table being the table. But I hate to see the criticisms of the game that aren't, I feel, actually criticizing anything that's specific to the game, especially because it's a smaller.
It's misleading.
Community. It's misleading, and as somebody that nerds were passionate people, but there are a lot of new nerds or just new to this particular hobby, or just now they've been playing tabletop for years, but just one type, and they're thinking of branching out.
They're gonna hear, 5e is more RP heavy.
Right. I really want to role play.
That's not fair at all, or no. Right. That's just such misinformation, and it's not fair to spread that, and it's
not helpful to the hobby in general.
No.
Because nothing is good for the hobby that is convincing anybody not to play a particular game.
If you want to play 5e, go play 5e.
Great, play
but don't
5e.
Act like, this game is something that it's not.
Mm-hmm. If you don't like the character progression in 2e,
maybe they just don't want to do 2e videos anymore or something. But
maybe.
You can just come watch us.
Yeah, come here. We'll make them. And really, if you're not sure about Pathfinder2e, and you've seen that video, now you've seen ours, stick around. We would love to show you why we love this system, why I went from only playing my personal homebrew games to saying I don't feel the need to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm a very, very picky GM. I very much enjoy having things exactly the way that I want them. That's my big personality flaw.
I just think that you like saying yes to really stupid and crazy ideas.
That too.
I think that's what it really is.
It is. I like being able to tell my players, do whatever silly thing you want to do.
They're like, can I be a giant flying snake monster with a unicorn horn? Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, you have to have the unicorn horn. I'm not going to let you take that back.
So anyway, we don't want to talk in circles on this, but we hope that you stick around at this channel because we do love. You won't hear us bad talking 2e. We have some really fun...
5e for that matter.
No. Just because we don't play 5e doesn't mean we're gonna talk bad about it or the people that play it. We watch it every week, so
if you want that incendiary sort of take, not the place for it. So don't stick around for that.
We want to be a positive place. We say the collective. We want to build sort of this positive community. We don't really want to tolerate just flinging hate around because, got enough of that going on, you guys, in the world.
And it's not fun. It's not a good way
to be superheroes and have fun.
Let's turn into big demon ladies and let's figure out a way to make our pirate ship fly.
It's happening. We're going to have some really fun videos coming up, though. I don't want to give away our new series that we're going to be doing as soon as the class series is over, but I'm really excited about it.
We're gonna dive into a lot of what we talked about here in terms of interesting and off the wall character choices and when you're making a character.
I do some build videos. I've seen some requests for that. We saw someone wanted to see the kineticist, as I said.
Yeah,
so
after we finish
we're going to throw that
classes
at the end of the class videos. Again, please tell us if there's something specific, because this is a new game. There's a lot to cover, and we want to make sure we push the stuff you want to see, ahead of our whatever wacky ideas. We have a whole chalkboard of ideas, and sometimes this video was actually on the list already. Why should you play this? And we'll probably do another one that's a little more,
a little less focused in on those two things. But yeah, it's very much, we want to make you feel comfortable with a game because we don't think it's as hard as people think it is. And so if you've got a question, even if you think it's a silly question, if you feel weird about it, there's no dumb questions. I don't believe in that. Just down in the comments, let us know. We're not going to mock you for asking the question. If anybody in our comments mocks you, they're going to get deleted.
Yes, we don't. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. We don't tolerate any bullying.
No, if you can disagree with me. There's a lot of nerd fights, but not personal nerd fights.
But like if it gets taught, like no toxic community in the collective.
No, so don't be afraid. Ask that question. If if you've got these sort of trepidations, these hang-ups that other people and other videos have, and you want, and admittedly biased, we like the game. We're not going to say, oh no, but I'm going to support when I tell you what I think is how I think you can do this, or why there's a misconception. I'm going to try to support my argument with examples of the game and how the game can be played. Not always exactly Pathfinder Society, but that's, for me, the point of tabletop RPGs.
And there are probably channels for Society. I think it's pretty clear by now that that's not the type of videos that we're doing.
No, we'll always let you know, for those of you that do want to know the right way, we'll always let you know when something is the right way, and we'll always let you know when something is a homebrew. But definitely let us know what you want to see and how we can help.
So I think that's good. We have a game in about an hour.
And we have to figure out food.
Yeah, 8 o'clock. Probably should eat dinner.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for sitting through this.
Don't forget to subscribe.
It was a lot longer than the video you came here to see us react.
Yeah, we were going to do a 15-minute video. Oops.
Thanks for joining the collective. We'll see you next time.
Bye.